just want to say happy Earth Day, and our philanthropy chair Victoria asked me to propagate some cuttings and show you guys how to do that and how you can make a bunch of plants from one plant. And yeah, I'm so thankful that she asked me to do that because she knows I love plants and it's one of my hobbies, and I'm really excited to share all of that with you guys today. So we can start off with this one I'm propagating. So you can see that it has massive amounts of roots. It's a big boy, and this is a Alba monstera. It's more on the, I guess, like expensive side of plants, a little like rare. So yeah, obviously that's not a plant for everyone, but it's the same method that I'm going to be showing you guys how to do, which is water propagation. So I'm just gonna go ahead and grab some tools and be right back. Okay, so first things first, you need scissors, something that can actually cut really well. I have these specific ones that are used for plants and cuttings. The thing is, every time you cut, you just want to wipe it down with alcohol wipes, or just grab some rubbing alcohol and just wipe it, anything to sanitize it, because you don't want to carry one plant's bacteria over to the other. The other thing that you'll need is either a mason jar or some type of tube. I have this little station that I got last year. I still use it every now and then when I propagate, but I realized that I haven't really been propagating that much because I'm just more interested in growing my plants right now that don't or can't be propagated. So this one I have been propagating for a few weeks now. You can see the little roots coming out. This is a Hawaiian pothos. So I will show you how to do that. You can do this with any species, and you just want to make sure that whenever you're filling up water, this is probably a bad example of it, but you want to fill it up to like kind of right above the root system so that it doesn't rot the rest of your plant stem. Like this one right here, even though it's submerged in water, you can see that it kind of cuts up above the root, and I can just like lift it up. Usually it sits like this. So that is something that you want to be aware of when you are looking at plants or just like wanting to propagate. So the first method is the water propagation method. The plant that we are going to propagate today is the Brazil philodendron. As you can tell, it's in really bad shape. It's because I haven't been the best at taking care of it, but there are some viable stems and leaves. So these at the bottom, you can see they're super limp and dried out, so we can't propagate those, but we can propagate leaves like this one, which is still really like thick and hardy, and this one up here, maybe this one we can see. But yeah, another plant that I will be showing you guys how to propagate today is one of my favorites. It is called the Peperomia frost, and it gets its name from all these like really silver and shiny little leaves. They're like little ripples, and this one is so easy to propagate. I think it's the easiest one, but you just propagate it in either water or soil, and I'll be showing you it in soil just to give you like some idea of a plant that looks a little different from others. And yeah. So this is a jar that used to have Ferrero Rocher chocolate, and I just reuse it. I will literally buy the chocolate from my brother to eat it so I can have the jars as propagation, but I just put some random soil in here that I got, and I just sprayed it down so you can see it has a little water condensation, and this is a really great environment to propagate our Peperomia frost. So I will be doing this with one hand, but here is my cool little scissors. They should be clean, hopefully. So you can see this is where I previously cut them. I could cut them deeper, I just am very lazy, so I just cut it like wherever I feel like it. But yeah, right here is good, kind of like right here, because I'm gonna trim it up higher. If this bothers you, you can cut deeper so it doesn't look as like weird with random stems setting out, but it doesn't bother me too much. And I'll be doing the same for back here, so let's just, yep. So I'll be only doing two because I don't want to overcrowd it, and this is fine. So this is like a really healthy leaf, I guess, that I would want to eventually save if I could. So I will be cutting it all the way up here with leaving some space for it to grow as well. So I'm just gonna pull that out a little. Just trying to shove it back in. See? Just like that, easy. You can do this with a scissor too, but I already have these tools, so I won't be showing you with a scissor. And you want to leave enough space where it's not too close, like right here, so the node can grow comfortably from. So this is a good amount, but because I also want to see if plants can grow from this long one that the one broke from, I will be also cutting it in 2 separate areas. So I'll just cut this right in the middle, just like that, right? So we have one leaf that we can propagate, this one. So right now we just finished cutting all these propagations, and we are just going to cut really close to the node right here. Then we're going to stick it right here, and we're going to do the same for the other ones. So now we just cap it and let it propagate. So now that we've finished creating all these cuttings, we're just going to let these cuttings sit for about a few weeks before they start rooting and are fully ready to transfer into full-on soil. So some things that we just want to make sure of is that we're changing out our water every now and then. I think a good rule of thumb for me personally is like 5 to 7 days, and you can keep your cuttings in a place that isn't too bright, so anywhere it's good. A lot of people put it in these like dark opaque jars. I just put it a few feet away from the window. And yeah. And for the peperomia frost that we are rooting in soil, it's just a little easier in my opinion to leave the lid on so it creates this kind of greenhouse. You can also do it without it. I just haven't seen that much success personally like that, and you can miss it every now and then. I find that if I keep the lid on, the soil doesn't really dry out. You do want to be careful of fungal growth on the soil, so make sure that you are letting it air out, you know, every like I guess like 15 minutes a day, whatever works for you. And if you find that it starts creating fungal, you know, you can pour some hydrogen peroxide in there to kill it. Mix it in with water when you do that, so that really helps just keeping all of that stuff at bay. So I was asked to talk about why did I choose soil propagation for certain plants or water propagation for certain plants. And if you guys remember this plant that I took some propagations of, I put it in soil, and personally for me it's a preference, but I'm just able to, I like to see the little leaves coming out when you're using soil for these plants, because they'll actually grow from here and they'll just have little leaves growing out. And I'll also know that it's grown roots when soil gets attached to the roots of it, and when you're I guess like picking it up, there's little soils on it. So I will show you if I'll take a look at our propagation and see if that's the case. So right here was where I propagated it. It's a little wet because I just sprayed it to increase the humidity, and I'm letting it air out every few days for until all the condensation from the side expires. But right now you can see what I mentioned earlier about the soil sticking to it because there's little roots coming out, right? But with broader propagation for these, if you just cut straight from these stems, so I will show you where that is. If you cut straight from these stems, so somewhere like really deep in here, and you plop it in water, the roots are going to grow out from the bottom, and it'll also produce little leaves out from the bottom. But personally for me, like, I like that I like that method I just showed you earlier, because in a little bit, in a few days, it'll have little miniature leaves coming out. And with the water propagation where the leaves are growing out from the bottom, I'm always worried that maybe like if I plant it in soil, like I'll end up crushing those baby leaves versus it's already adapted to soil. And right now this plant's a little thirsty, so I'll be watering it. So the other reason that I decided to propagate this plant from the top is because once I cut off the top, the end will just kind of like cut itself off from the mother, so you can just pull this out. So I have another one here. Oh, sorry. But it'll just also, it won't leave like an imprint on the plant, so that's why I prefer to cut from the top. I also want to even out this plant so you can tell there's a lot of baby ones coming out, and the big ones will eventually die off to make sure there's enough nutrients for the small ones to grow. And I like the look of my plant to be really clustered together and really full, so once I finish propagating those, I will be adding it back in here, and it'll just have like a little leaf at the bottom and it'll look really cute. So that's personally why I chose the soil method for this plant. It's because I'm able to see if it has grown roots based on if there's little like soil attached to the bottom, as you saw earlier. And I'm personally someone that don't really want to like a really tall plant, you know, because I prefer to keep it in the same plant. So I would, if I were to get, you know, propagating it in water from like stem and it grew, like I would have to poke a hole and put it in, but I prefer to have the little clustered look. So I think it's all about your personal preference and what type of look you're going for with your plants. So definitely something to keep in mind and consider. Cuttings from the node and put it in water is because personally for me, like philodendrons and pothos are easier to root in water for me because I'm able to change out the water frequently. I don't have to visually see, I am able to visually see if the roots are growing, and it's letting me know if it's working or if the plant isn't just gonna take. So those are issues that I'm able to visually see when I'm potting those in water, compared to if I were to put it in soil, I would have to wait, you know. And the other thing is like this is a plant called the Philodendron micin. So it's very similar. It's the same kind of like family as the Philodendron Brazil, but obviously a different species. So this plant I would also be able to cut from the node and just pop it in water and it'll grow. And this is a really easy plant to grow as well. So I think this like type of species is also up to your personal preference. But there are some plants where you can't necessarily propagate it just from cutting the leaves. So this is a Alocasia silver dragon. So this one is a really special plant because these plants produce babies or offsprings from the inside of the plant. So it'll produce these little bulbs, like little seeds, and you could take the seeds out and plant it in soil, and then it'll grow. Oh my god, there's a bug. So if you're scared of bugs, don't do soil. Sorry, let me just flick that shit off. Okay, it wasn't a scary plant, it was a scary bug. It was just a bugs that happen to come in soil. So the other thing is like yeah, so this one, it produced little bulbs, and the bulbs will produce one singular plant. So right now you can tell this special boy has two growth points, but it's actually for one bulb. So that's what makes this specific plant so special compared to other like Alocasia silver dragons that will only have one bulb. And those are just different types of propagation types for different types of plants. So the other one I showed you the other day, which I'll be transplanting to soil today, is this Monstera album. So monsteras are actually plants that like deliciosos, Thai constellations, and all those. They have really big like stems. So you can see like this would actually be like a really long stem, and there's growth points like here, and you would want to cut between those to be able to have a plant that can actually produce on its own. So if you're looking for monsteras, make sure that you're getting a plant that either has like a growth point somewhere, you know. You wouldn't want a plant that doesn't have a node, because that necessarily isn't going to produce any leaves. So that's like another thing about plants. And the pros and cons of soil and water propagation are, there's a lot, but the main ones for me personally is with certain with water propagation, it roots a little faster for me because there's not elements or things in that soil would have that the plant would run into when they're trying to push out new roots. So it grows a lot quicker and just pushes out so much faster. But compared to soil, where there could be like peat moss in there or like bark or whatever medium you're using, it doesn't matter. There's basically they basically have to push out stronger roots so that it's able to grow and like basically, you know, grow up in the soil compared to water. So water propagation also produce roots a little faster. So this also means that when you're transferring water propagations into soil, because the water roots are not that strong, you also want to emulate that environment that water would have for the plant. So in general, that means making sure the soil is wet for the first week to week and a half. And that can mean you're watering it every like 2-3 days to make sure it's wet. And then eventually when you see that the plant's doing well, you know, it's growing okay, like you can take back on the watering and let it slowly dry out before you water again. So that's one con of water propagation, because you have to transfer it to a medium. But if you don't want to transfer it to a medium, you can also keep it in water. You just want to make sure that you're able to add in the nutrients plants would need. So something you could purchase is Super Thrive, and just add a drop of it into that water for that plant, and it'll continue to grow in there. And could just change out the water. Don't worry about pests because there probably won't be any in water. But just want to make sure that the plant is getting the nutrients it needs, because a lot of times they won't. And with soil propagation, it's obviously in soil already. It has really strong roots, so you just want to monitor it and make sure that you know, it's adjusting well, it's growing up well, it has, you know, it'll be fine. Like there's not that much you would want to do for it because it's already growing in soil. It's already gone through this hardship of producing out roots that are strong enough for it to help the plant get water and sustain itself. So those are just some pros and cons of soil and water propagation, so whatever works for you. With succulents, that is a little bit of a different story, so I'll just go ahead and grab some of my succulents. So I just grabbed some of my succulents. So these succulents are very easy to propagate as well. So you would have, you know, a mason jar or whatever it is you would like to propagate it in for water propagation specifically, and put a plastic rack over it and poke little holes, right? And then put the leaves in, but make sure that the bottom aren't directly touching the water. And you want to make sure that these leaves have had time to kind of like callus over. So something that I would do is, if I wanted to propagate these, I could start it now, and I would pick off the bottom leaves, like gently twist it, and then let it dry out for a day or two until I see that the bottom, it's not secreting any liquids or it's not wet. It feels kind of like, you know, when you get a blister and then the blister heals over time, there's a little scab. So you want to make sure it has a little scab, and then you put it inside the mason jar you created with plastic foil on top with a little hole, and the bottom isn't touching the water. And you just let that sit for like a month, 2 months, and it'll just produce all these really nice water. It'll produce these really nice roots, and you can transplant that over to soil, or you can leave it until the leaf that you put in, which is what we call the minor leaf, has like died off. And the other way that you can propagate this type of succulent is soil. So you would same process, you know, twist off the leaf, make sure it's callusing over, and then once it's calloused over, lay it on top of soil very gently, and make sure that the bottom where you twist it off is touching the soil. And you want to mist the soil every 2 to 3 days. So I've propagated some succulents before in water and soil, but a lot of my soil was just really long to produce roots, or like it didn't really take, or I didn't remember to mist it. So I'm someone that's really in favor of water propagation. It's just what's worked for me. And I'm not a plant expert or anything like that, so definitely do your own research and see what will work for your specific type of plant. So yeah, And different types of succulents can be propagated in this way, in different ways. So this one I told you before, you can twist it off. But other types of succulents are basically what a lot of the plant community likes to call a string of things. So I only have string of turtles and string of hearts. So this is a regular string of hearts. It's not ready to be propagated, so I won't be doing any propagation, but you can tell they grow little ones from inside. And you could essentially, let me see, you could cut it off like here, right? Sorry, let me show you. You cut off here or above here and propagate this into whatever medium you would like for like soil or moss. And make sure that when you're putting it down, because you already cut it off like most of the stem, so you would have cut off up here and you would have cut off right here, and you just plop it down so it looks like a butterfly, right? When it's in soil, it will look like a butterfly. So that's a really easy way to propagate string of hearts. And I also have a variegated one over here, so it's growing really well, you can tell, but it's not ready to be propagated yet, so I won't be able to show you guys specifically, but you can look up the butterfly propagation method. And the other way that you can propagate these in soil is get a longer piece of stem. Obviously this is a pretty young plant, so I don't have a super long stem, but maybe when it's down here, right, I would cut it over here, and I will stick the point where I cut it into the water, and it will just propagate like that as well. So it really depends on what type of person you are, what's the easiest for you personally. Is it easier for you to change out the water? Are you someone that will remember to mix the soil, so those are all certain factors that you want to take into consideration when you are propagating these plants. And yeah, so just make sure that you're picking the best method for you, not what someone else is saying. So do your research, see what is the best option, and